This is Legacy Battle. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on whatever you're watching this on right now. I'm Michael Adams, creator of Legacy Battle. My only panelist tonight is from the Gridiron Battle Zone, Brian King. We are joined by a special guest tonight, former professional hockey player who was the 15th overall pick in the 82 NHL draft. He's played with the Rangers, Penguins, Kings, and a member of the inaugural Tampa Bay Lightning team. He's an Olympic silver medalist with Canada at the Lillehammer Games. So we got left winger Chris Kontos. Chris, thank you for joining us.
Pleasure to be on, guys.
So we're gonna do almost like a career retrospective here tonight. We got an interview with Chris. We're gonna be jumping all through the timeline in these questions, but we are gonna start at the beginning. So go ahead, Brian.
All right, Chris. So you were born and raised in Toronto, Canada. Who were your early influences and inspirations to get you into the game of hockey?
Well, as a kid, it's actually a funny story. My dad he'd come over from Greece when he was 18. He met my mom in Toronto, and they had me, and he didn't know anything about hockey, but he liked it. It was fast. He was a soccer guy, and he bought a pair of skates for him and me, and we both learned how to skate together. So by the time I was probably 10 or 12 and started getting into hockey, the Toronto Maple Leafs obviously were, the thing in Southern Ontario or Canada, or most of Canada back then even. It was always the Canadians and the Leafs, but I was always a Leafs fan, and I can remember the days of Darryl Sittler and Landy McDonald and Borje Salming and, Mike Palmateer in net, and that was that's what we watched as kids. I know it's probably before your time, but that's what gave us all the jam to want to become NHL players.
Nice, nice. So let's jump ahead to 1983, 1984, Tulsa Oilers. A remarkable story. They had to play the final 6 weeks of the season on the road because the team suspended operations, but still took that CHL championship. So tell us what it was like going through what you guys did that season and overcoming some significant adversity.
It was a great year for memories because we became the Orphan Oilers, and we went and based out of Denver, Colorado, which obviously now Stanley Cup champions, as we know, unfortunately. But it was great to live in Denver and then travel to Salt Lake, and all the other teams were in the CHL back then as just orphans. Like, we didn't have a home team. We just played on the road, and we ended up going all the way and winning it all and winning the cup.
So now we're gonna jump really far ahead on this one. So okay. 92, 93. Let's get to the Lightning here. We are based in Tampa, so this will go over well with a lot of our viewers. So Tampa Bay Lightning inaugural season, like I said, you sign as a free agent. What is it like being part of an expansion team and that first season locker room next to the circus animals? What was just kind of like your experience there at the Florida Fairgrounds? We've had your teammate Peter Taglianetti. He was on and gave some interesting stories about the fairgrounds. Darren Pupa as well. But I just want to get your thoughts of what made you choose Tampa, or did they choose you? And your thoughts on the first season here in Tampa.
Well, for me, it was kind of a situation where I was on the 92 Olympic team, and Terry Crisp was the assistant coach to Dave King that year, and Team Canada won silver in Albertville. I actually was cut on the way from Sweden at a pre-tournament on the way to Albertville, and Terry Crisp, who was kind of in my corner back then during the summer, had said, look, I got the coaching job in Tampa, get your agent to get a contract. I highly recommend you try to take a shot down here. So I signed a two-way contract, which just wasn't the best thing to do, but I just figured it's good to have somebody in your corner. And I went in great shape, and I lit it up in camp, and I got the chance to start opening night, which if you had asked me that a year before, I'd say there's no way I'm going to be starting in an NHL game the next season, just because there's always highs and lows of a career. But that's the way it worked out. And I got off to a great start with the Lightning. And it was just a it was surreal because I played in Phoenix and I played in Denver and Los Angeles, and I love playing in the southern warm weather environments. It's just so nice to get out of a practice. And you talk about the fairgrounds. You guys know that all those little ponds are stocked with bass. I don't know if you guys know that.
No, I didn't know that.
I'd bring my little retractable fishing rod and go back, and Roman Hammerlick and I used to go. We used to just catch a couple bass and just take our time after practice. He was a young kid that could hardly speak a word English, and he was just learning his way. So it was amazing. And even though it was only like 10,000 or 10,500 or 11,000, the place rocked and everybody was into it. And I remember the first game, I think I got my hat trick goal, and I know my godfather was at the game, Gus Panelitis, and he threw his hat on the ice, and Espo had to go up and tell the security guards, "Hey, it's a tradition. When you get 3 goals, people throw their hats on the ice," and they wanted to throw them out for littering on the ice, and it's just amazing how they'd have to explain what offsides and icings were. But look where we are now, the amount of cups that we have, and we're like a premier franchise in the NHL, and it's just such a great feeling to have been a part of it and help put Tampa on the map.
So let's stick with that season here. So you scored 27 goals in 66 games, 51 points. That's third on the team. I know you're behind Brian Bradley. I'm forgetting who the other player was you're behind, but you were only a -7 on a team that combined was -312. So
Yeah.
that is really impressive. Statistically, this is like by far your best NHL season. So what went right for you with the team that year? And shockingly, like to me, maybe there's a story behind it, but that was your last season in the NHL. You went and played internationally with Canada. Like what made you leave the NHL after your best season?
I don't think you have enough time on this broadcast to go through all that stuff. But basically, everything, I touched, I think I had 20 goals in the first 21 games. And I remember being I played with Mario and I played with Gretzky. And when we played them, they'd give me a little wink, like, way to go. But I was always like a third or a fourth line mucking guy, penalty killing guy. I was getting the chance to, I was a first round draft choice. I'd proven that I could do it at the Ontario Hockey League level. And it was just nice to finally get a chance to do it at the NHL level. And I was doing really well. I think on game 66, we were at Maple Leaf Gardens and I collided knees with Drake Berehowski, and my MCL got, it didn't fall off the bone, but it took me out for the rest of the season, and I wasn't able to play the rest of the season. And then after that, I'd only had a 1-year contract. It came down to another contract, and some funny things happened, and I wasn't able to re-sign with Tampa. So because I got cut from the Olympic team in '92, they had offered me after my season and my production, they'd say you're guaranteed you're going to play in the '94 Olympics with Paul Kariya and Peter Nedved, and the list goes on and on of guys that went on to the NHL. And I just said, it's not about money now. It's about playing for my country and doing something that I'm of Greek descent, as I was telling you, and I'd been to the place where the Olympics was started in Greece, and it was just a bucket list thing that I had to do. So that was basically, it wasn't much of a decision. I wanted to do that, and I accomplished it.
Were you aware that your 4 goals record stood for almost 20 years in Tampa?
My phone almost blew up the night Martin St. Louis tied it, and I remember Paul Kennedy called me and he said it was 18,000. I don't know how many days it was, or some crazy number that they keep a stat on. And I was like, I can't believe that. Well, you got Stamkos there, you got all these prolific scorers, and nobody's got 4 goals yet. That's like crazy, but it was pretty cool.
So let's backtrack to another great point in your career. The 88-89 NHL playoffs. As a member of the LA Kings, you had a great run in 11 games, 9 goals, 3 even strength, 6 during the power play, a hat trick against Grant Fuhr of the Oilers, game winner in game 2. So you hadn't seen a whole lot of action during the regular season that year. So how were you able to just get so red hot in the postseason?
Probably another funny story where when I was with the Rangers and the Penguins, I was up and down in the minors, and there was a guy by the name of Robbie Ftorek that was coaching the Kings at that time, and I played with him. He set me up for my first NHL goal when I got called up from the Toronto Marlies, and he was now the coach of the Kings, and I'd been playing in Switzerland that season. I had a really great year, and I got back early after because European hockey at that time ended a lot earlier. There were way fewer games, and Rogi Vachon had got me at the 11th hour to sign a contract. I had to fax it back in just before midnight, which I did, and I got to join the team and play, I think, 4 or 5 games before the playoffs started. And I was hot during those games, and they just let me keep going, and I got hot in the playoffs as well.
So let's
You
go.
mentioned,
Oh, good. Sorry.
good. I was gonna say you mentioned earlier, Chris, about Wayne Gretzky and Mario Lemieux. I believe they're the two best players of all time. Um, so what was it like playing with those guys? And I'm gonna put you on the spot. Who was better?
Oh, I always hate answering that because they're both so epic, and they were both unbelievable in different ways. Like Gretz could see the ice better than anybody and put pucks into open areas and think ahead, almost like somebody that can see the future. Mario, 6'6", wingspan the same size, could stick handle and control pucks and pass and shoot and do everything. Smooth, skate fast, even though it didn't look like he was skating fast because he was so tall, but just a pure, like they called him Super Mario. And that, to me, technically his skill level was a little higher than Gretz, but Gretz had a different skill set when it came to using the whole team and on the ice and knowing where to be himself and put pucks and on another level. So it's hard to say who was the best if you follow what I'm saying. They're both epic players.
We had Dan Quinn on, and he kind of gave the same answer that you did. As far as Mario maybe being more talented, but it's impossible to judge it too. And Mario had all those injuries, but let's move to '94, the Olympics. Gold medal game. We're going to jump right to that. Team Canada goes into overtime against Sweden. No goals scored in overtime. Goes into a shootout, and then all the way it takes till the 7th shooter. Unfortunately, a win for Sweden. But just tell us about being part of that like famous game and being part of the Canadian Olympic team for the second time there. And in your opinion, do you think that a playoff game or championships should be decided by a shootout? Because I am totally against that in the playoffs.
Hell no, no. The shootout after a small overtime is just. I mean, you watch Stanley Cup playoffs. It should be that way, but I know that at the Olympics, it's usually the hockey game is the last one of the whole Olympics, and there's the closing ceremonies. And I don't know if they could switch it. I mean, what would happen if it was like a 4-period overtime or 5-period overtime? I don't know if it would just screw up all the planning of everything. I don't know how it would work. So they have to, I can respect the fact that they have to do that. But to lose the gold medal to a shootout is tough. Like, it's really tough. I mean, I can understand an NHL game, overtime, extra point, but the medal, after we lost the shootout, I remember getting the silver medal, and I didn't even want it, really. This is like right in the moment. But I mean, all these years later, I'm honored to have an Olympic medal, whether it's bronze, silver, or gold. And I mean, that's my takeaway from it. I have a ring that they gave us that I wear proudly that, it just signifies that, the Olympics was on my bucket list. I got a medal from it. It's not gold. I would have liked it to have been gold, but, in hindsight, it was just so honorable to be playing, whether you're American playing for the U.S. or Canadian playing for Canada. So I can't complain.
So you played in Italy, Sweden, Germany, Finland. That's just some of the European countries I found that you're in. I mean, the rinks are bigger there, less hitting normally. It's an East-West game where the NHL is North-South. You being Canadian, like, did it take you a while to adjust to that type of game? And and also just playing on the bigger ice. So what were your thoughts in those European leagues about playing there?
My my first stint over there, I was having a contract problem with the New York Rangers, so I went to Finland and I played for Ilves for a year. And I couldn't believe how skilled and technically good their guys were passing pucks and making sauce passes and taking passes. And I was like, these guys, it's almost like that's all they work on is their technical part of the game. They don't work on, how to corral somebody in the corner and, you know, beat them up and try to come up with the puck. They're all finesse and trying to play that style of game. And it really helped me going over there at 22, 21 or 22 years old and playing that style of game. I think it really helped develop my game. Tell you a funny quick story. When I was with the Rangers as a rookie, we were in Long Island, and Tom Laidlaw had the puck on his knees, and Bob Nystrom, I don't know if you know these names or if you're,
Oh yeah.
he went in and kind of gave him a shot. I was an 18-year-old kid just called up, and I gave him a push, and he told me to get the out, and I just dropped my gloves just like I would in junior. I learned pretty quick that there's some guys in the NHL that are pretty strong, and let the strong guys fight the strong guys, because I flew around like a rag doll, like just like a towel in the wind. He was throwing me around. It was one of the most humbling experiences ever. I met him later at one of our alumni events down there in Tampa, and what a beauty guy he was. But there, some of these beefers back then they were beefers. They were strong, and I didn't want. I said I better learn how to pass and score and shoot. And I said we'll let the beefers beef, and I want to become a playmaker.
So Chris, on your Twitter page, you mentioned both Pros Marketing and Edge Again. Can you tell the viewers about both of those projects?
Actually, Pros Marketing was a print company that I had. I sold it a few years ago, and
Okay.
the Edge Again was a rechargeable and skate sharpener that I partnered with Magna out of Toronto with, and it was sold worldwide. And it's still being sold, not as much because nowadays, if you look at the back of the NHL bench, they have the black bag with all the guys' blades, and they pull the trigger. You ever see the guys get a shot on the skate and the blade falls off, and they look like Bambi trying to get off the ice because their blade's falling off.
Right.
Now, if they lose an edge during the game, they just switch blades. But for the old school way of fixing a blade, we had the Edge Again on benches in the NHL and all around the world, and it was doing really well. But I've sold that as well, and I just do a product now called Raptor Liner, which is a pickup truck bed liner, and it's sold Canada and United States under raptorliner.ca and raptorliner.com. It's done very well for us. But thanks for asking.
Well, we'll get you out of here with us tonight. So you just mentioned the New York Rangers. When you were with the Rangers, I would say they were kind of on almost like a rebuild, in my opinion. They did have a lot of veterans. I think Anders Hedberg was still there when you were there.
Yep.
Ulf Nilsson, who was actually recording with Ulf Nilsson a little bit later today.
Yep.
He was on his last legs, unfortunately. I don't know if you were up in the pros at that specific time when that Potvin hit happened. Were you there for that? Ulf Nilsson career-ending hit?
No, I didn't see that. I wasn't there at that time. I was in Pittsburgh at that time.
Okay, you're in Pittsburgh already. But so with those Rangers in the rebuild, I mean, playing in New York is just a different cat, So what was your experience like being there in Broadway and just being part of just a historic franchise? All the other teams you played for were like expansion teams later on. So just your thoughts on playing in New York.
Original six in Madison Square Garden, still there. Phenomenal place to play. It was tough for, let's say first rounders back then because there was myself, Dave Gagne, Terry Karkner. There was a whole, like a slew of guys that were drafted in the first round, but New York they hadn't won in 40 years. They were trying to win a cup. So they were bringing in guys, making big dollars that had good careers somewhere else, and they were trying to plug them in to elevate themselves rather than, possibly rebuild. Like you see some clubs rebuild nowadays where, they're not going to be good for 2, 3 years. Then all of a sudden, bang, they're right up there in the playoffs fighting, trying to get to the cup. So it wasn't like that. So it was always, get called up, get sent down. And it was always New Haven. That was the American League team. you get called up, you play a little bit, and then you're not scoring enough, so you're back down in the minors. Then it's psychologically and mentally it's tough, but when you're up and things are going well, it was like the creme de la creme. It was a fantastic place to play in, as I'm sure it still is now.
Well, we want to thank you, Chris, so much for joining us today for an interview. We really appreciate you being here.
My pleasure. Anytime.
Awesome. I'll remind everybody, hit that subscribe button, whether it's YouTube, Amazon Music, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple, iHeartRadio. I'm forgetting a few, but just hit that subscribe button. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you all next time. Have a great night.